Everything is personal right here. Everything is personal right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Everything is Personal. A very special episode. Unplanned doing this way, but because you will see this probably after the Super Bowl, but it became a Super Bowl special show because we have a special guest who's Chef Matthew Petersen, who's director of manufacturing for Jushi Holdings and is wearing an Eagles hat. Made me put on my Eagles gear as well. So we'll have an Eagles championship celebration probably, hopefully. How's it going, Matt?
Hope so.
So you grew up in Philly, right?
Yeah.
What part of Philly did you grow up in?
We lived in the northern suburbs of Philadelphia, better known as Bucks County. Grew up in a one stoplight town named Dublin. It's in between Doylestown and Percy. And yeah, it's a very small town, middle of nowhere. It's very burb-like, but we would spend a lot of time going down to the city and go to Veterans Stadium and watch the Phillies, watch the Eagles. I was big into basketball when I was a kid, so we would always be at the Spectrum watching the Sixers. And I have an insane amount of pride and love for the city that I come from. And it's something I've carried with me and have transferred to my children and my wife, even though she is from New England, being a Patriots fan most of her life. So it's caused some conflict in our family, but hey, it's all in good fun.
So because the Eagles played the Patriots last time they won, how was that environment in the house watching a game with your wife?
It was special, to say the least, because I being a Philadelphia fan, you've just kind of grown up, not to say to be a loser, but like you've just never won anything, you know what I mean? So I never knew what that felt like. So I never really considered that we could actually win the Super Bowl or World Series or anything like that. We've gotten multiples in the last couple decades. So that game was just incredible, with especially how the season panned out, and it kind of broke up that multiple run of the Patriots. I think they had, if they had won that one, it would have been 5 in a row, but we impeded on their win streak. And to this day, it just rubs Patriots fans the wrong way. So when they see me strolling around town in my Eagles gear, I get looks every single which way, and I just love it because it just is like,
yeah, I love that too. That's great. I lived in Bucks County. I grew up in Northeast Philly.
Okay, yeah.
And I went to high school in Philly. I went to 3 different ones, like one in North Philly High School of Engineering and Science, but I graduated from Northeast High, and I went to Temple. But I moved to Bucks County, so I lived in the Holland-Richboro area. So I know the area you're talking about. What was your childhood like? Do you have brothers and sisters? Or?
Yeah, I got 2 younger sisters. They both actually just moved back to the area. My youngest sister, she was in Colorado for multiple years. Her and her significant other opened a food hall called Rosetta Hall. It's very much like Eataly, but not necessarily Italian focused. So that's been a good success for them. And I think they moved back to the Philadelphia area to potentially open one of those locations. And my other sister was living in Toronto for probably 3 or 4 years. Her husband is in cannabis research, psychedelics research, alternative metals, fuels, stuff like that. So he studies the stock market and those types of products, and to see where they go and just kind of learn more about them. So he's been a good resource for me in the cannabis industry. But yeah, they both moved back recently, and my mom kind of was like, all right, well, when are you coming home? It's like, I think I kind of like where I'm at right now. We enjoy the New England area. You got the beach nearby, you got the mountains nearby. So my childhood was rife with craziness and getting in trouble with my friends and just doing stuff you're not supposed to do. So It was tumultuous at times, but no different from most other kids growing up in the suburbs.
Yeah. Yeah. You come from a food family, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So is it baking?
Yeah, definitely baking. I think growing up in the 80s, a lot of the food was canned. You pulled most of your meals out of the cabinet. And I think my mom, did that to an extent here and there when she needed to, but for the most part, they were cooking from scratch all the time. So we always had something going on in the kitchen. And especially when it came to baking, and it was more so my mom's side of the family, my grandmother, her sisters, when they would get together, man, we would have some amazing spreads of desserts, and I always loved to bake at home, just making cookies, Tall House chocolate chip cookies with my sisters, and I don't know, man, it just always struck a chord with me, and I think at a young age, I knew that I enjoyed that. It was something that I really found a lot of comfort with, and it kind of blossomed from there, and it's been really amazing so far. It's been a wild ride.
So you kind of went baking versus cooking, and
Right.
that's because so this is my experience with baking. I love to cook, but baking, it's too like you have to follow the recipe. I like to freestyle, but
Yeah.
baking is like if you don't follow it to the T, you mess up. So was that
Yeah.
part of the attraction to that? Like I really can stick to this and then get out the product I sort of envision and then
not
freestyle within that, or
not necessarily in the beginning. It's like um there aren't too many jobs for people who want to do desserts or baking or anything like that. Like I'm sure I could have found a job at a bakery, but ended up finding a job at a caterer as a dishwasher. And within a couple months, I was working in their prep kitchen, peeling shrimp, cutting vegetables, etc., and just realized that I was pretty good at it. And my family started looking at the different colleges that were around, and we took a trip up to Rhode Island, check out Johnson and Wales for a weekend, and found out about this program where you could skip your senior year in high school and go to college. So it was like, all right, let's explore that a little bit more. But I've always loved science. I've loved math, but I don't think I made the connections that, like, hey, baking is science, baking is math.
yeah.
You're good at those things. Take that path. It was more like, hey, I love to eat cookies. I might be good at this kind of thing. So it was very exploratory, and you're not really sure how things are going to pan out. But I think it's just like anything. If you are focused and dedicated and passionate, like, the success will come. And that is certainly true in my case, because I just put my head down and I went for it. I didn't know what I was going for, but I just followed the signs that were placed in front of me, and just tried to take opportunities when I could. And it's just been an amazing ride. And now to be in cannabis, forget about it. It's awesome.
But that's a great point that you made because, well, first of all, you said you had some science and math background, but you also knew that you really liked this. So you followed your passion all the way through. Part of it is, luck. Part of it is
Yeah.
being self-aware
Right.
because a lot of people, I know friends of mine who they picked up a guitar when they were kids and like, this is it. I'm not going to, I'm just going to play the guitar and do this
Right.
forever. Or, drums. I had a friend of mine who was like drums all the time. And his parents, after he finished school, said, you have 5 years. You either make it, or if you don't make it now, you have to go into family business. And
Right.
went into family business, unfortunately. But making it, he still has that passion for it. So being able to push yourself through those obstacles, washing dishes, peeling shrimp, it's just there's a path. But as long as you stick to that passion of what you kind of connected to, that makes sense. A lot of people steer off their path because it gets.
It's really true. And I see that a lot. My previous job, I was a corporate pastry chef where, I was responsible for multiple properties, and we would see so many kids coming through the college system that just didn't get it for whatever reason. Maybe they were jaded in college or whatever, but the work ethic was just kind of lacking, and a lot of them just assumed, like, oh, well, I've got a degree, I'm a chef now.
Yeah.
like, no, that's not how it works. And then when you explain it to them in a reasonable manner, objectively, they like still didn't get it. And it's, that's the thing about the culinary industry is it will chew you up and spit you out without any question. Like it does not care who you are, where you come from. And I think that's a really unique thing about it. I'm sure there's other industries like that, but yeah, cooking is very much about emotion and what you put into it.
It's not the most conducive industry for family though, because I
No.
had a couple of my friends are chefs and they're like 60 hours a week, and
Yeah.
there's levels of stress and all that stuff. It doesn't, then there's substance abuse and drinking and all these
Oh yeah,
like side effects that I see.
rampant.
Exactly, yeah. It's so. Let me just back up before I jump
Yeah,
into
please.
that. After college, was it Morimoto that you went to work at?
Yeah, Morimoto, for Iron Chef Morimoto
Yeah,
in Philadelphia. That was man, I never expected to get that job, you know.
I was gonna ask you because so I have a little bit of experience there. I have a friend of mine who had a restaurant in Philly called Kiso, and it was a sushi restaurant. If I remember correctly, it was on Fourth and Race, and
Okay.
great sushi. And then he said Morimoto was after he wanted to open up a restaurant. He was traveling on the country and meeting with sushi chefs that he sort of respected or whatever to ask him how's the scene there. And he met with Alex, and he said to him, Philly, it doesn't have a huge sushi at that time.
It didn't.
It
No, it
wasn't
didn't.
huge. So, and he decided to open up his restaurant there. And I remember I went, I think it was opening night or some of that, and he was there and he came over and he did this, if I remember correctly, maybe it wasn't opening night, but he did this spring festival menu, and he would walk over and he asked you, but everything was so beautiful, flowers, but it was so traditional. Like
All right.
it wasn't like, California rolls or anything like that you would
Yeah,
think
yeah.
of. So that's why I want to ask you. That must have been a really interesting experience getting that job, first of all, and then
Yeah.
maintaining that because he has like strict guidelines.
It's yeah, it man, there's been a few jobs I've had in my career that have really opened up my eyes to what's out there. I mean, you can only experience so much on the other side of the dining room. And most restaurants that I've worked at, I've eaten at them prior to either applying or going through that process. So I knew kind of what I was getting into. And I remember eating there with my mom before my tasting. You'd always have to do a tasting where you do an initial interview and then you go and you cook 3, 4, 5 courses for their management team, and then they would taste your food and critique it right in front of you. So, my mom and I are sitting in Morimoto, and we're just, we bought every single dessert. We bought a bunch of stuff off the menu, and I'm just looking at her like, I can't make this stuff. Like, I don't know how to put wasabi in a tiramisu. Like, that's completely foreign to me. But I just took what I was good at and I put my own little spin on it, and it ended up winning them over, and they offered me the job. But man, it's so intimidating when you're around people like that because one, they have decades of experience on you, and two, they just come from a different part of the world that I didn't necessarily understand. So working with all the sushi chefs, like that was really, really so cool. Just see how regimented they are. Like I thought I was regimented in what I did, but watching these dudes, like they took it to another level. And man, it really instilled a precision and an understanding in repetition and being comfortable in doing the same thing day in and day out. Really, really eye-opening experience. And but then when like Morimoto would come into the restaurant, man, it would just elevate things to another level and everybody be on edge. Like it was the same thing when I worked for Daniel Boulud. Like he would come into the kitchen and it was like a bomb went off. It was like everybody's running around scrambling, trying to put things together. And yeah, working
That's in Daniel, right?
Yeah, Daniel Boulud. He owns
and then there
Danielle
was
in
another
New
one.
York City.
LaRue did you work at? Am I pronouncing it right?
There was a restaurant called La Croix,
La Croix,
which is
that's
in Philadelphia
right.
also. Yeah,
That's
so I went there after Morimoto. So Morimoto was very Japanese focused, and then La Croix was French focused, which is more of my wheelhouse. But man, I loved learning all the stuff at Morimoto because it was just a whole different world of flavor, and it was just awesome.
The combinations, it's so interesting that you mentioned putting wasabi in your dessert. Like, who would think of that stuff? And then the regiment of, as you said, doing the same thing over and over with pride. But there's rules to that stuff. I watched this documentary on the sushi chef, and they were saying every little thing, like even the way your chopsticks have to lay. They lay parallel, not this way, like we do a perpendicular in America. And you can't, if you dip your fish in soy sauce, you don't dip it rice, you dip it fish side, and you can't make it drip. You dip it and then you eat it. If it drips, it drips. It's impolite to do that. All these rules. I was like, wow. So not only you're cooking with crazy different flavor mix, but you have to maintain a certain process and rules to that cooking, right?
The traditions are really, really interesting and leave you pondering at times, but also being like, all right, well, they're onto something because the Japanese have had this amazing culture for centuries, and it's something I've always looked to with respect, but to see it firsthand, like even these guys sharpening their knives every single night, like the same way, they'd all go to the same station and they would all do it the same way, and just learning from them in that manner was like, okay, I'm ready for whatever challenge comes my way. If I can work with these dudes, like I got anything.
So how important is like the aesthetic of a dessert, versus the flavor?
Almost more important than the flavor, honestly, because people expect desserts to look great, and if they don't, it kind of fails. It could taste good, but if you can have the combination of aesthetics and flavor, like you've nailed it.
There's I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I think his name is Omri, French chef. He had a show on Netflix where he's a chocolatier. He makes all these crazy things.
Amari Guichon.
Amari Guichon. Yeah. Man.
Wizard.
Wow.
Unbelievable stuff.
Like, you don't even care how the food tastes. Like, you don't care, but the shit that he makes is like, holy shit, it's on a different planet. Like, it's
it really is. It is. Yeah. He I think is a sculptor first, but knows how to manipulate chocolate and put these different forms together that look very much like the real thing. It's really incredible.
So after I think you're working at Daniel in New York.
Yeah.
How did this Top Chef desserts, how did that even happen? How did that come around?
They actually came to me. When I heard about the first season coming out, I thought, maybe this could be something I would want to go after, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to see how the first season went. And after watching the first season and talking with friends in the industry, it was like, man, that was a shit show. Like, I would never go on that. That's a complete disaster. I can't believe some of the things they've had to do. But I heard they were casting for the second season, and I knew they were having trouble finding the talent that they wanted. And somebody from their recruiting agency called our hotel because, they're looking at the cities. So they're like, okay, well, who's at the top restaurants in these cities? Let's call them up. And that's basically what happened. So the PR agent for the hotel came and said that they were interested in casting me. Would I be interested in doing that? And, I gave it some thought. I said, why not? Let's go for it. So you have to submit all these application videos, and there's a stress test and there's all this stuff that you have to go through.
Wait, there's a stress test?
Oh yeah. They put me on a treadmill and tried to make me pass out, man. They wanted to see
they just wanted to see how you do under pressure. Was that it?
Yeah.
Oh man, I never thought about that. That's pretty interesting.
It's some intense stuff. And after going through it, you kind of understand why they make you do those things, because they need to know that, one, you can make it through the show, and two, you can handle, the amount of stress that filming a TV show is going to put on you, because you don't really know what it's like until you do it. So yeah, it was, I think they made first contact, and about a month and a half later, I was in LA filming.
So how was that whole experience for you?
It was awesome. Incredible experience. I've made 10 amazing friends. Not to mention, excuse me, the friends that I made that were on the crew, the hosts, the judges. A lot of those people were folks that I've looked up to my whole career, and then to be shoulder to shoulder with them, as a colleague was really sobering and humbling, and just made me feel like I belonged, and like this was something special.
Was it like was it a lot of wait, like do you just
Oh yeah,
wait till next one, like
hurry up, slow down, hurry up, slow down.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like. There were a lot of instances where we weren't allowed to talk to each other because they wanted to get some of those conversations on film. So if we were going from site to site, we would be talking and they'd be like, no, you have to shut up. You're not allowed to talk. Hold it until we get there. We're like, no, but we want to talk about it now.
They want to get it all on film.
Yeah, they wanted to get it all on film. And, there were a lot of times where they would poke and try and get things to happen because obviously drama sells, especially on a reality TV show. So there was one instance I can remember, I think it was episode 2 or 3, where we had to make a wedding cake. And I was really unhappy with how my cakes came out. So I dumped them in the trash and I started over. And I remember immediately the film guy had his camera in the trash can and the producer was in my face like, why'd you throw that out? And I was just like, I wasn't happy with it. And they kept poking me and like, I wasn't happy with it. And I just wouldn't give them what they wanted. And I think that pissed them off, but I wasn't about to jump into their drama because I had to focus, man. I had a task at hand and it was make a cake that was delicious.
Right. Yeah, of course, drama sells. They try to do that.
Oh,
do
yeah.
they try to do that with other contestants and try to
yeah.
some stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think they would partner certain people together to see what things would happen. And, I think we were a group that weren't necessarily into the drama. We were there for a reason. So I think in some ways it kind of had the show, a little bit flat feeling, which is why I don't think they did a 3rd season after that. And, dessert shows are very hard to film and produce. I think Food Network has kind of figured out a formula with their holiday baking championships. Like that really works. But I think with the format of Top Chef and how that show is constructed, it doesn't really work for a dessert themed approach.
Yeah, I think the British baking show, I forgot what
the
name of it.
They've got it down.
Yeah, they definitely have it down. And the way the judges don't talk like that in America in these shows. It's a whole different thing. So you got to the finale?
Yeah.
So
I made it to the finale. Yeah.
Right. So do you think that if you would have infused some cannabis in there, you could have won?
Man, I'd love to think so. I think I would have had him so jaded that I'm like, yeah, just give it to that guy over there. He made us feel really good.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe there's a way that you can add some secret ingredients. So, speaking of, how did you get involved with Jushi?
I was in the right place at the right time. I was working for a private company in Massachusetts. We had been licensed for maybe a year and a half. I was hired to develop their entire edibles program. So I built out their kitchen, helped them build out the facility. We built it from the ground up. And, I knew that the owners always had the idea or the intention of selling, because that's why a lot of initial investors get into it, is they want to make a flip and get some wealth out of it. I'm not in it for those reasons. That's not why I got into it, but I kind of knew that would happen at some point. So, along that way, I had interviewed with multiple other MSOs, which are also known as multi-state operators. Those are companies that are vertically integrated in multiple states. And in those companies, I never felt like it was the right fit. And I kind of always pictured myself with an MSO because I wanted to be able to have a broad impact across the country with edibles. And that's been my steadfast goal. So, along comes Jushi. I remember a lot of their upper management coming into our facility and asking very specific questions. It kind of gave them away. Like I knew who they were after that. And so I went to the visitors log and I looked up their names to see who they were. And so I knew something was coming. And, they ended up buying out our company. And, it made the initial investors, very happy. And, for me, I was happy because I thought that this was a company that I could help them get to the next level, and they could also do the same thing for me, because I knew I had a vision and a goal in mind. So yeah, fast forward, it's been about a year and a half now since they purchased Nature's Remedy. Our retail stores are still known as Nature's Remedy here in Massachusetts. We have one in Tingsboro and one in Millbury. But yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And I'd like to think that my part of the operation was a big selling point for them, because they needed a good edibles portfolio, and so I think they recognized that strength in us, and I hope that helped solidify the sale.
Yeah, I know Dre Neumann.
Yeah.
So he was actually on my show before, but
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he and I connected over music too. I'm a big music guy, so
He's awesome.
yeah, same with him. So you said your vision a couple of times. What is that vision for edibles?
It's things that are approachable. It's things that are recognizable, things that are comfortable. I think they should also be things that aren't necessarily made with a bunch of refined sugars. I think there's a lot of products on the market that are saturated in sugar, so they they can have high fructose corn syrup, lots of preservatives, etc. But I wanted to kind of take the approach of food and what I've built my career on, and bring that to the edibles arena. And certainly there's tons of products out there that are similar to what I do. I'm by no means making anything exclusive or unique, or anything that isn't in another market. But I think what we do differently, though, is we use the best ingredients we can possibly get, and treat them with respect, and manipulate them in a very personal way, so that what our intention is in the beginning is reflected as a finished good, as a packaged product. And that's kind of the overarching theme for our product line. And then also, everybody who works in our kitchen and our extractions department, they all share that kind of mentality and focus, and love for cannabis. Yeah, it's there's a lot to offer out there, and I think we're just scratching the surface.
So I guess over the years, you've experimented before at home and stuff with cannabis, with edibles.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was the very first thing that you made with cannabis? Was it brownies?
Luckily, no, it was not brownies. It was definitely chocolate chip cookies, going back to like one of my childhood favorites. Yeah, it didn't turn out so good. It tasted like weed, but I can't say that it had the effect I was going for.
You didn't decarboxylate properly.
It just tasted like grass. It was like, all right, well, it tastes like there's something in there, so maybe we'll get high off this. I don't know.
So then next time you're like, I'll make the butter instead and use butter, infused butter with the cookies.
Yeah, we've done that. We've put the straight decarb flour in there. We tried every which way. We've made tinctures, all sorts of different methodologies.
The whole edible thing is interesting to me. First of all, I commend you for the ingredient thing, because there's so much shit ingredients in edibles. And people just take stuff and are like, well, just put some weed in it, and all people care about is getting high. Yeah. The taste is so important. I really don't like edibles that much for various reasons. First of all, dosing is always challenging. Second of all,
be inconsistent. Yeah.
Yeah. I personally, I don't eat sugar, but I will have once in a while, a good sugar, but nothing with corn syrup, nothing of that nature. Right. And if you look at most of the edibles that are out there, they're like, not even talking about baked goods, like starting with gummies and starting with all those kind of products and moving to chocolates. And there's companies that have been around for years who make chocolates that really don't even taste good, but they're infused and all that stuff. So having a visual aspect, as you mentioned first, having taste, and then the other thing that I think I read somewhere that you said is you want to use the entire plant in some of your edibles. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The one thing that you touched on right there about taste, I mean, we're making things that really taste good that just happen to have cannabis in it, and that's been my approach the whole time. But as far as like a whole plant extract, there's so many benefits to the whole plant, and the product that's primarily used in infusions is called distillate, and that's essentially THC stripped from the plant with no other terpenes or cannabinoids or anything left in there. Sometimes there's a few cannabinoids left, but the majority of them are so minimal that they don't have any impact on your body. But I'm sure you're familiar with the entourage effect, et cetera. I'm sure there's lots of different names for that whole kind of focus right now. But if you've ever had an edible that's made with a full spectrum extract as opposed to one that's made with a distillate extract, there is a night and day difference between those things and how they impact you. A 5 milligram full spectrum edible will have significantly more impact on your body and how it affects you as opposed to one that's just strictly THC. And the unique thing about that is you can tailor those edibles to have a specific effect for somebody who wants something that's going to help them sleep, or something to help them relax or focus, or feel energetic. All of those things can be brought to the forefront by sourcing cultivars that carry those traits. And then when you just get all that flavor. A lot of people don't like the taste of cannabis and food, but for me, I love it. I think there are a lot of synergies there. And when you find things that grow together, they taste good together. So it just, I don't know, it seems like a no-brainer to me. So I really want to push that going forward, using products like rosin made from bubble hash. We could even just keep it simple and do a simple RSO, something like that. It can really be beneficial in so many different ways.
I think the biggest challenge that you hit on is taste. And when you're using using flavonoids and you're using terpenes, and then you have ingredients not complementary to that specific profile, it actually enhances the taste that you may not want to enhance. And most people are making edibles. They're not necessarily chefs or pastry chefs that then are using cannabis as one of the ingredients. So I think that's one of the challenges. And it's much easier to use an isolated molecule like a distillate, because you don't have to worry about taste. Or they start making it and then they're, well, let's use some bitter blocker. Let's use this. Let's use that. And now you're starting getting into chemicals, and it defeats the whole purpose of using this as a therapeutic plant. It's just another way to be able to consume that, where people want something that tastes good and actually, as you mentioned, has an effect.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You just have to do the research and try and find out what flavors complement each other. It's like creating a dish of food that doesn't have cannabis. Like, I wouldn't put asparagus with my chocolate. Those things aren't complementary of each other. So find things that complement the dominant terpenes in that plant, and bring those to the forefront. And then you'll have this synergy that is just like magic when you eat it, or smell it. Like, there's, the taste is all smell, it's not necessarily all in your taste buds. There's a olfactory thing going on there. So if it smells good, chances are it's going to taste good. I wouldn't say that of cheese all the time, because there's some funky ass cheese out there.
The worst smelling cheese is usually the best.
Absolutely. Epoisse, hello. So yeah, I'm really focused on that going forward. We just got some bubble hash equipment installed in our facility, and I'm really looking forward to putting all the different strains in there that we can possibly get our hands on, and washing those and pressing them into rosin, and then putting that into an edible. Because this is all exploratory for me too. Like, I don't know what Northern Lights chocolate would go best with. I have no idea. I know that Northern Lights is spicy, so I might like something a little bit on the on the sweet side.
Is it spicy because it has a lot of beta caryophyllene in it?
Exactly.
So that's exactly what this mindset, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because I want the whole industry to listen to that. This plant has flavor profiles that are specific to those terpenes and flavonoids, and understanding that it's spicy, maybe spice, and maybe add some more pepper. I don't know. I'm not a baker, but I'm saying that complementing those kind of ingredients and putting them together makes a lot of sense. The plant itself tastes and smells different. Every single cultivar does. And I think people just, it's easier to strip all that out and throw it into.
It is, and it's kind of sad in a way, we're not doing our best job servicing the plant and everything that it offers. In fact, we're doing it a disservice. And I'm not saying that there isn't a place for distillate or anything like that, because there certainly is. Not everybody likes the taste of cannabis with their food, but I think if we approached it differently and tried to make those things complement each other, perhaps those folks would have a different impression at that point.
So a couple of questions about the actual, what you're actually making. So you're making, are there chocolate bars, or what are some of the desserts that or the edibles that you're making?
Yeah, right now we're making 4 different types of fruit chews. They're pectin based. They don't have gelatin in them. So they're vegan. They're made with all natural fruit puree from France, single origin fruits, the best of the best. They are made with refined sugar, but I'm trying to make a move to go to organic sugar so that we're at least, being sustainable for, the forests and all the agriculture. 3 of those have added isolates in them. So CBD or CBN. One of them is a 1-to-1. They also have different mixtures of terpenes. So they're kind of effects-based products. And that is really fun too. I wish they were cannabis-derived terpenes. They're not, but that's okay. That doesn't mean that they don't have the same impact and value that, cannabis-derived terpene would. But I think they enhance the flavor, number 1, which is the most important to me. And number 2, they actually taste really good. I think because we're using natural fruit puree, you're getting a different mouthfeel, you're getting a different flavor profile, and those things together can mask the flavor of that distillate without having to use a bitter blocker, as you mentioned. Yeah. As far as the chocolates go, we're using chocolates sourced from France. Again, single origin chocolates. These are responsibly sourced. Valrhona has been in business for decades, and they're definitely at the forefront of commercial chocolate production. They take care of their farmers. They take care of the land that those farmers are responsible for. And you can really taste the terroir in their chocolates. My favorite one is their Guanaja. That's what we would call our dark chocolate. So that's a 70% chocolate. It's got really nice notes of red fruit. It's got a very bitter finish to it. It's very clean, very strong cocoa flavor up front. You cannot taste any cannabis in this chocolate at all. And for good reason. I mean, it's a really magnificent chocolate, and it allows the flavors of the chocolate to shine, as opposed to, somebody else's product who might use like a coating chocolate, which isn't really chocolate. It's like brown colored wax that has like flavor in it. And the majority of producers are using that. Yeah. But we just came out with a mint chocolate bar that was inspired by the Andes mint bars. So it's a blend of milk chocolate. It's a blend of white chocolate. We put some vanilla bean in there. Really, really nice vanilla bean. And we're using a natural mint extract in there. And it tastes like an Andes mint. It has the texture of it. We're really excited about that one.
Yeah, I love that. I know what you're talking about because I went to Hershey University with my daughter.
Oh, yeah.
I was taught all about it. I got a certificate, and I was taught that white chocolate is not really chocolate.
Nope.
So it was all sugar and milk. But yeah, dark chocolate is definitely the way to go. Being part of an MSO and having so much care for the products that you're creating, how do you maintain consistency and standards across different states?
Well, that's actually a great question. We're getting ready to launch our products in Virginia very soon. They have the second floor of their production facility getting finished out. We've got a bunch of new equipment in there. Our Ohio facility is pretty much built out already. But, I think the thing that would resonate with me is just having a clear focus and a clear goal in mind. And then, impressing that upon the people who are making those things and trying to instill in them a sense of pride and ownership in all of those things that you create. Because you know what, bar number one should be just as good as bar number 10,000. Like, because if they aren't, then you failed. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. So you really have to have a passion and a love for what you're doing, because one, it is very repetitive. You're doing the same thing over and over and over. But for me, I find a sense of comfort in that, and knowing that somebody's going to benefit from having this chocolate bar. It's going to make their day a little bit better or ease their pain or whatever it is. But consistency, follow through, and holding people responsible for their actions are really how you're going to get the best out of them. Accountability is really important, and making sure that everybody's on the same page and we're all focused on that same goal. That's really what it comes down to. And then obviously the other huge part of that is having people around you that share that same vision, because guess what? You're only as good as the people next to you. And I've been really lucky to work with some amazing people. We have an amazing team in Lakeville, both in our infused products department and our extraction department. They're all super passionate, and it just makes my job a lot easier, because I get to feed off of them and they get to feed off of me, and together we get the job done.
Yeah, and I think if I can make a suggestion, if you don't mind, that
Please.
that pride in doing something over and over. You mentioned Marimoto, so finding the people that can actually take pride in the journey, in the process, and connecting the same outcome. Now you don't have to do anything, because everybody's accountable for their own piece of it, because they know that it's going to do X, Y, and Z, and you take pride in the process. And I think some of those amazing Japanese chefs, and they've been able to instill that in everybody with that sense of pride. Hopefully we can replicate that.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm reminded of a little quote from a chef that I used to work for, and I remember him saying, Matthew, we have a really intimate relationship with the people that we make food for, because they put that food in their body. Like, you cannot get closer to somebody unless you're like a doctor or they're your significant other. Like,
Right.
And I was always like, that's kind of crazy. You make food for somebody and they end up eating it, and they could get really sick from that, especially if they had an allergy. So there's an insane amount of responsibility in the production of food, whether you're a manufacturer of spices like Bob Kraft, or you're at a mom and pop restaurant down the street. There's so many things that you need to take into consideration. And I think all of those things are heightened when you're in the cannabis space, because you're doing CPG. There's ramifications of not processing things properly. Something could sit on the shelf for too long. There's just a lot of different things that I hold myself personally responsible for. So if something fails down the line, like, I take it very personally.
What's your favorite dessert to make?
Chocolate
chip cookies. God. I bet it's chocolate chip cookies.
I don't think I'm allowed to say chocolate chip cookies right now.
You can.
To make it changes. Like, I go with the tide. So this past weekend, my kids and I made a rip-off of a bakery's cookie. So there's a bakery in Disney World called Gideon's, and they have these massive cookies. Like, they're huge cookies. So I found a recipe and I kind of manipulated it myself, and we made them over the weekend. And I'd say we got like 90% of the way there of what these people make in their bakery. And dude, there's a line out the door for this place every single day. So that's what we made this past weekend. So that would probably be my favorite thing. So it's like, my favorite thing to make is whatever I'm making with my kids.
Yeah. Well, all right. So what's your favorite dessert to eat?
Oh.
And would you order, like, if you go to a restaurant, do you order dessert and then
Absolutely.
And then do you then eat it while you're critiquing it as well as you're eating it?
Unfortunately, yeah. sometimes people don't like to dine with me because I'll just be like, oh, they did that, or oh, there's a fork on the floor, oh, that linen is not ironed properly, or that waiter's uniforms aren't creased right. I've always said that I want to enter a restaurant from the back door, because if I don't like what I see, I'm just going right back out the front. Because people will treat their kitchens in a certain way when they don't think anybody's looking. So I would say my favorite thing to order would probably be like either something very traditional. So if I'm at a French restaurant, I'm going for creme brulee. If you can nail creme brulee, like, you can probably do most other things in your repertoire. Because I think the simple things are the hardest ones to do.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. So what are some pointers, since you said it, if I'm going into a restaurant, what should I be looking out for that'll like ring the alarm and say, maybe this isn't a place?
So a giveaway right off the bat is, are the menus clean? Do the menus have food on them? Are there fingerprints? Look at the floor when you're walking in, even the doors, like, is the glass clean on the doors? How does the host stand look? Is the host stand a mess? Is it nice and orderly? And then how are you greeted immediately when you walk into that restaurant? Like, because if people aren't making eye contact with you right away, then I don't know. There's certain things I'll forgive in a restaurant. You can have mediocre food, but really great service. You can have mediocre food and lame service, or you can have amazing food and lame service, and I would just never go back. I think for me, it's really all about the service and how I feel as a guest at their restaurant, because ultimately a restaurant is a reflection of somebody's home. Like, that's how it should be treated. It doesn't have to be a 4-star restaurant to be able to evoke that kind of feeling. But I think when upper management cares, it shows in everybody else at all the other levels.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all about the experience. I'd rather have mediocre food and have a great experience with a friendly waiter and everybody, when they say hello and they greet you. And yeah, I completely agree. And cleanliness is key. It's
absolutely
key.
Oh my goodness. It's the first thing I look at, and everywhere I go is like, it's kind of a problem actually. But I
just had that at lunch. I just had it. I got a cup of coffee and it had some lipstick on the cup. Like, I was like, can I get another cup? But in the back of my mind, everything that I was eating from then on was already, I wasn't having a good experience.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because it's like, yeah, you could ask for an extra cup, but how do you know they didn't just wipe that one before bringing it? Exactly. We're not even going to go there. We won't go there.
There's a movie called Road Trip, and Horatio Sands plays a waiter. It's this movie where they go on the road. Obviously, they go on a road trip. They do the psychologist, but this guy orders. His name is DJ Qualls. He orders French toast, and I think he didn't want powdered sugar. So Horatio Sands, the comedian, comes out. He goes, "I'm so sorry about that. Let me make sure I'll get you another one." And he comes in the kitchen and he shows him licking the sugar off, and then he throws it in his sweatpants, and he walks out and pours him some more coffee. Everything okay? Then he comes back out, pulls it out of his sweatpants, and serves it to him. Kid's eating. He's like, "Oh, that's good." So I always have it back in my mind.
Man. I'm proud to say I never worked in a restaurant where I saw anything like that happening, at least while I was looking around. But yeah, it's I'm sure things like that are pretty rampant.
So what else can we expect in 2023 from you, from Jushi? What are some other elevated cannabis experiences that we're in for?
Oh my goodness. I'm hoping that we're going to be working on, like we were talking about, the full spectrum products. So we have those rosin products going. That's where I'd really like to focus, because I think you can put rosin in, any type of food product. So, I know there's been some talk of like pressed tablets, kind of like sweet tarts. Yeah. It's a product that Jushi had at some of their other sites, a year or two ago, but we pulled the plug on it because we wanted to reformulate it and just kind of refocus those things. And we're obviously rebranding Tasteology with my product, so I think we're going to look to that area as well. But just doing things, I think, that are more in line with a full spectrum product, and utilizing the cultivars that each different production facility is going to have, because we don't have in Massachusetts what they're growing in Ohio or Nevada, for instance. So I think that's where we can really find some variability in our offerings. And then, I think the other thing I'd love to do is do some regional products, things that are unique to the specific area where these stores are, because, we can offer what we offer here in Massachusetts, but you know what, down in Florida, they might like, guava cheesecake or something like that. So I think regional products would be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I love the idea of first of rosin. I think is one of the best ways to consume cannabis because
Agreed.
you're actually, you're maintaining the integrity of the whole plant.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it's a great way to consume. The one thing that I would say is, and you mentioned it briefly, therapeutic products. So
Yeah.
a lot of people have a lot of challenges with edibles to begin with. Not only are you getting the 11-oxy hydroxide conversion in your liver when you consume, some people are predisposed to, stress reactivity, anxiety, all these different things. And when you consume edibles, it's a different experience in your body after it goes through your liver. So having products, as you mentioned, one-to-ones, something of that nature, because there really aren't a lot, and especially when states go recreational, like I'm in California, they start forgetting the medicinal products. So we have people that need a medicinal product. They come in and you have as many concentrates you probably, you have shatter, you have all these different things, but there's a little tiny shelf for, more medicinal therapeutic products. So having, those one-to-ones or having those specific kind of products, or maybe lower THC for some people, love to see, products like that too.
Yeah, I would agree. There's certainly a lot of space out there to make products that can appeal to a broad range of customers. I make a lot of my own lotions and stuff at home, CBD based or THC or a combination thereof. And a colleague of mine was just mentioning the other day, I made him, just a simple salve with some beeswax, coconut oil, and full spectrum CBD extract. And you never really know how those things are going to help somebody. When I mean that in referring to the potency of it.
Yeah.
So you never really know. But anyway, to hear from that person that they're getting relief in their knees by using that is really like, it's really all the thanks that I need, honestly. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's like when I would watch a dessert go out of the kitchen into the dining room and see that person enjoy that food, like that was payment to me. And to hear that people are getting relief and comfort from the products that we make is really special to me.
And I think we forget sometimes, a lot of people, you mentioned, like, people get in this business, they want to flip. You forget the reason why you're in this business. Everybody, I've been doing this for such a long time, and everybody's like, it's the green rush. You're going to make all this money. It's not. And it never was, for some people that, there's outliers, but it's about what you just mentioned, the outcome. Like, what are you in this for? You're helping people to feel better in some way or another, whether they use it as, quote unquote recreational. I don't even like that word.
No,
you're using it for, fit. Yeah, you're using it as an adult for whatever reason you're using it for, or using it for a therapeutic purpose. That outcome of somebody saying, thank you, you helped me, or this helped me with my headache, or this helped me with my knees. That's the reason why we're doing this.
It really gives me goosebumps when I think about it, and I could honestly say that, as a kid growing up, I always kind of felt, it's like I felt about baking. I always knew I would fall into baking. I didn't know I'd be good at it, but I just knew that that's kind of what I wanted to do. And I think in the back of my head too, I always knew I'd end up in cannabis because, when it went medical in California in the early 2000s, you just kind of knew it was happening. And I was just always preparing myself for that. And then to be in a state where it went, recreationally legal, it was like, all right, let's do this. We're doing this now. And it's been really satisfying.
That's great. All right. So I have a few questions I ask all my guests.
Hit me.
Let's go. Real simple
do it.
ones. All right. So please describe your very first experience with cannabis.
Oh man, I can remember being in my garage after school. Parents aren't home. Buddy's got a bag. We've got the garage door open, 4 or 5 inches, and we're sitting on the floor. Like, are we doing this right? Like, what the hell is this? What is this? It literally looks like grass clippings. I have no idea if we got high or not, but that was my very first experience with it. And I remember looking at my buddy. His name's Craig. He's still a good friend of mine to this day. We're just like, this is kind of weird. Let's look for something else, and we started asking around, and eventually we found something that was a little more befitting of what we were looking for. But I'm pretty sure somebody sold us, some snips from their backyard there.
That's funny. I'm a big music guy, so
Cool.
concerts are a thing that I like to go.
Yeah.
Do you remember the very first concert you attended?
Oh man.
Or a memorable one? Let's say one of the early ones if you remember.
So my folks weren't really into music growing up. I mean, my dad would throw on Eric Clapton here and there, but they never went to concerts when I was a kid. So I never really got to go to a concert until I was in college. And we would go to small shows. Like I think the first show I went to was a hardcore show, Orange 9mm. Very much a huge mosh pit. And that was just right up my alley. So I loved that. But the first major concert was when Wu-Tang was touring with Rage Against the Machine. And I got to see them at Great Woods, which is north of here, like maybe 40 minutes where I live. And it was insane, just off the charts, man, to see Rage Against the Machine live. Like Wu-Tang was great, but I was really there for Rage. Yeah. Let's be honest. Yeah, that was a killer show, man.
Yeah, I saw that tour too. I just ran into Tom Morello at the CVS not that long ago.
No way, dude. Oh my God.
That's insane. And at the Starbucks twice, actually.
What?
So, yeah.
Does he know who you are?
Oh, yeah, of course. Came up to me. No, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
All right. Do you remember the very first album that you bought?
It was, I think it was Michael Jackson, maybe on CD.
Yeah. Is there anything you're listening to these days that you find cool? That
my wife has got me turned on to reggaeton, so a lot of J Balvin, Daddy Yankee, Bad Bunny. Yeah, there's a lot of really good artists with reggaeton, and I've always been a huge hip hop guy. So to find reggaeton was like, okay, I can dig this, man. So I put it on when I'm working out, and it definitely gets the juices flowing.
So being a big hip hop guy, did you happen to watch the Grammys and the 50?
Yeah, we caught snippets of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole Grammys. I just couldn't sit through all of it.
It's a lot. Yeah.
That 50th anniversary, 12-minute or whatever they did.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Pretty sick, man. Pretty sick. It reminds me of the Super Bowl last year with Eminem, Dre, Snoop. True. Awesome.
True.
Just awesome.
And I want to end on the Super Bowl thing, but before I do my final question, no, I actually have one question and one bonus question.
All right, cool.
All right, what has cannabis meant in your life?
Oh man, that's a really there's an elaborate answer, but cannabis has really been a savior for me in that it's given me another platform to work on. In restaurants and fine dining, you kind of hit a ceiling. There's not too many other places to go aside from owning your own restaurant. But I think cannabis has been able to give me a different voice to use, which is really special to me. And it's my wife has some pretty serious health issues, and for cannabis to help her through those things, and seeing them firsthand, like things that I've made, helping her sleep, is just amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and I couldn't be more grateful for what I have and where I'm at right now, and then thinking about the future. Yeah, cannabis has afforded me a lot of things, and they're all very personal. They're not like tangible things. They're like, just very personal feelings and emotions.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. All right, bonus question. Please describe what your room looked like growing up.
It was definitely pictures of Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan. Yeah, it was just all basketball gear because I was a basketball player growing up. Yeah, I can picture my saxophone in the corner, life-size picture of Jordan, life-size picture of Barkley, and then just like a bunch of science experiments on the shelves.
All right. So what's going to be the score of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl?
I'm calling it for the Eagles 27-20.
Close game. You think
Gonna be
it's
a
going
close
to
game.
go? It's going to be close towards to the end, right?
You know what? I'm hoping for a good game, but I thought the same thing was going to happen in the NFC Championship. I thought that was going to be a close game. I thought whoever had the ball at the end was going to win. And man, that did not happen at all. We demolished that team.
Well, same thing
I'm
with the Giants. We came out the same
Yeah,
thing. I thought the Giants. I thought it was going to be NFC East matchup. We know each other's going to be a close game, but
totally.
crushed
I
that
thought the
team
Giants
too.
were going to come out swinging because they had momentum on their side the last 3-4 games. They had taken that win from us, I think, the second to last game of the season, and it looked like momentum was in their favor. And Jalen was like questionable, wasn't sure if he was 100%, hadn't played enough lately, so it was like I was kind of nervous about playing the Giants, honestly. And then it was over. It's like, okay, 49ers, what's up? What's up? Best defense in the league? Who?
Yeah, and Hassan Reddick went to Temple, which is my alma mater as well. It's super.
I
cool.
love watching that dude play. He is just a madman.
Yeah. Well, 27-20. I like that score. Andy Reid has to give Philly a Super Bowl.
He owes us,
Not just
man.
hanging.
He
owes
did.
us one, right?
He built us up for years and then just bailed on us.
I
Needed to go though. It was time.
All right. Matthew, where can people contact you, find out more about Jushi?
Yeah, you can find us at tasteology.com. I don't particularly partake in social media, so I'm not super prevalent on Instagram or anything like that. But yeah, you can find us at tasteology.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm around.
Cool, man. Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Dude, thank you, man. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Really had a lot of fun.
Yep. All right. Eagles Super Bowl.
Go Birds.
Celebrate. Go Birds.